Conclusion: the only way to conform to the growing emphasis on a Chapter 1. Having a plan helps fast-track your journey to financial success. It's not enough to admire successful people or brands from afar. You have to learn how to understand the processes that led to their success. The world's richest individuals didn't get their wealth by chance. They dared to do what other people were not willing to do. Achieving sustainable wealth requires knowing the intricacies of the business world and understanding the techniques required to create a successful brand. Many people have business ideas that are worth implementing, but they have no idea how to start or sell their idea to the world. The business world is a very competitive place that needs you to be on your toes at all times. The main objective of this tidbit is to help you kickstart your business career. Creating a successful brand requires having enough capital and knowing the right market to start. Winners hardly quit, and if you are the type that gives up easily, you'll find it difficult to be successful. Every difficulty you face is a learning experience that you must hold on to. Successful people are not defined about what people say because they are the ones that influence the market and decide for people what they want. Chapter 2. OKRs are techniques required to create a successful global brand. John Doerr recalls his 1999 encounter with young Larry Page and Sergey Brin, Google's co-founders, when they pitched their ideas to him and convinced him to invest in Google. Although their presentation was concise and powerful, their search engine company was the 18th to enter the market, and that alone would discourage even the most optimistic of investors. However, John Doerr found in these two young men the clarity that could make the difference. They knew what they had and how big it could become. They had concrete goals, but not the managerial experience to make it happen. And so, after investing $11 million in the startup, John Doerr visited the team to instill in them what he had learned through his years as an engineer at Intel. At Intel, Andy Grove matched technological brilliance with impressive managerial skills. The tools that had worked all those years for Andy Grove is called OKRs, the acronym for Objectives and Key Results. According to John Doerr, objectives are simply outlined goals, no more and no less. He has discovered that the ability of an enterprise to clearly define its objectives would naturally help it sidestep the pitfalls of fuzzy executions. Key results are the gauging tools for monitoring progress and how to attain one's objectives. Objectives and key results are not a substitute for good leadership, effective decision-making processes, and creative workplace culture. Together, these tools molded the tenacity and transparency that we all have come to define Google. It values the role of all its employees, while motivating them to view their actions as critical contributions to Google's ultimate goals. Reach high, for stars lie hidden in you. Dream deep, for every dream precedes the goal. Rabindranath Tagore. OKRs are the glue that binds everything in the workplace together, and it ensures that every department produces results. In other words, this business management strategy would help a group of people to choose a course of action and see it through to the end. Did you know, as of July 2017, Forbes ranked John Doerr as the 105th richest person in the United States and the 303rd richest person in the world, with a net worth of $12.7 billion. Chapter 3. With the implementation of OKRs, it becomes possible to analyze success and align it with predefined goals. Through the implementation of OKRs, it becomes easier to dissect the origin of business principles, linking it to the teachings of Peter Drucker, who believed that workplaces should be a community based on trust and respect for the workers. In time, the executives started adapting this school of thought. However, it was when Andy Grove linked this model to manufacturing production theories that it became a worldwide phenomenon. He discovered that output is the right way to gauge productivity, not increased activity. To establish such a model, corporations should rely on quarterly or monthly assessment, a more aggressive and aspirational approach to doing business. They need to also ditch the conventional hierarchical structure for a flat model. Andy Grove encouraged employees to write down their objectives and paste it where everyone could see. This practice helped workers find meaning to the work they were doing, and it motivated them to get things done. For instance, when Intel faced stiff competition from Motorola in 1980, the company did not retreat into its shell or panic. Rather, Andy Grove led a renaissance that restructured Intel's business model. In the end, Intel retained its position as the market leader, and it has never looked back. Crises do not destroy great companies, they strengthen them. Bearing in mind that great companies use crises to their advantage, it is imperative that companies cultivate business management skills. Chapter 4. Learn to pick objectives and key results that will guide your output. There are certain things that every executive must have at the back of their mind when adopting the OKR strategy. You must identify the whats and whys. Here, you must outline the vital things. Note that it is important to publicly discuss your objectives, both in words and in deeds. More importantly, your employees must understand your objectives and motivators. Therefore, you must express yourself as clearly as you can. However, since this strategy is new to your employees, you could introduce them to it slowly by enforcing OKR monthly, quarterly, or annually, depending on your present business culture and how volatile your market is. Nonetheless, ascertain that the time frame for assessing progress is clear. Another thing to consider is that you are not sacrificing your brand's reputation, quality, and safety when establishing objectives. And so, the author advised that you set key results that will guide your output. It is not just about meeting deadlines. Instead, you must ensure that your team does not ignore steps that would jeopardize quality. Setting anchors for your objectives makes it easier for you to assess achievements because it makes your wins visible. It is important to be clear about your goals. For example, if your goal is to win a race, your key results shouldn't just read, train daily. Rather, a better KR would be in a form of stratified requirements where you will outline the number of training sessions daily, the time frame, and the exact training strategy to utilize for each session. Also, while setting up objectives, you mustn't take on more goals than you can accomplish. Hence, make sure that your objectives are lean to make it easy to filter distractions and focus on the vital goals. Chapter 5. Build a collaborative workplace ecosystem that gives employees a bit of freedom in choosing their OKRs. As an executive, once you have identified your objectives and outline your key results, the next stage is to align the actions of your teams or employees with these goals. As simple as this sounds, it is no easy task, and this is where many companies have failed. In most cases, a large percentage of enterprises have reduced productivity because employees are not aware of their core responsibilities. The two basic ways for aligning objectives both require that objectives are open and transparent. For the first approach, a CEO can outline their OKRs and cascade the KRs as the objectives for their team leaders. Similarly, the team leaders would set key results for these imposed objectives, and they could cascade their KRs as objectives for their team members. For example, the owner of a basketball team could pick revenue increase as their main objective. To achieve this, their two KRs are filling up the seats whenever their team is playing and getting the team to win the league. Naturally, their KRs become the main objectives of the coach and the club's PR team. And so, on the part of the coach, they could choose to strengthen their team's attacking prowess and defense as the viable KRs to achieve their objectives. It is left to them to subject their KRs to the team's trainers, who will deliver the coach's goals by adopting training sessions that would sharpen the players' attacking and defensive instincts. These chains of OKRs from the top down is a significant step up from no OKRs at all. But it could stifle productivity. For one, it is not flexible, as it is difficult to alter key results midway. Also, it is unlikely that employees will put in all their effort into achieving an imposed objective that differs from their personal goals. A tightly cascaded system is bad for an organization because it shuts out ideas and observations of workers that matter. Secondly, seeing the flaws of the top-down approach, it is advisable to consider a bottom-up strategy that gives employees a bit of freedom in choosing their OKRs. Having said that, it is your job to ensure that each individual's OKRs align with the company's grand objectives. This you can do by mandating that all OKRs, including yours, are accessible. Chapter 6. Assess your OKRs and learn from your shortcomings to track and account for progress. Now that you have set up a flexible, decentralized, and transparent OKR structure, it is imperative to track and account for progress. This task might entail that you should get an OKR assessment software, depending on how big your workforce is. However, it is essential that OKR reports and assessments are accessible and that it does not exclude anyone. This line of action gives employees a sense of purpose as they become aware that the company's performance is tied to their everyday activities. So, if you think that a viable OKR management system should serve your business better, it is best to go for one that can offer seamless access. Also, these platforms promote internal networking as individuals with intersecting goals come together to make the process faster. As you track your OKRs, it becomes easier to ascertain the viability of your chosen objectives and the strategy you adopted to accomplish them. Based on your progress reports, you can choose to continue, modify objectives or key results, add new OKRs, or quit. Hence, OKR assessment would help you identify your shortcomings and ways to fix them. And when quitting or modifications is the sensible thing to do, you must alert people that are depending on your success. Even when you have successfully achieved your goals, it is crucial to evaluate your performance. To do this, you should first score your performance, engage in self-assessment, and reflect on the work done. Scoring. Performance scoring is a simple way of highlighting achievement by assigning it a grade. On many OKR management platforms, you will find scales that score performances according to the individual's completion rate. Self-assessment. Although completing work would automatically give a high score, it does not take into account the factors that might have diluted or complicated the objective. As such, self-assessment tells the whole story behind the numbers. It allows you to judge your performance and efforts based on the realities that might have aided or stifled success. Reflection. This evaluation method would help you identify what you could have done differently and how this knowledge will help you in your future endeavors. Chapter 7. Stretch the limits of your objectives, as this will eventually launch you into greatness. In the realm of greatness, there's no such thing as impossible. Instead, impossible only connotes things that we are yet to fully understand and explore. Therefore, the idea that your company needs in this age of innovative technology is goal-stretching power. This mantra has worked for Microsoft, whose objective was to have every household own a computer at a time when such a goal was considered a pipe dream. The same is true of Google, who set out to arrange all the data in the world and present it in a meaningful way. What you should learn from these companies and their knack for colossal goals is that stretching the limits of possibility will eventually launch you into greatness. Therefore, it is not surprising that today's innovative generation is leaving no stone unturned in their attempt to push the human race to the next phase. Note that your team or company would consist of one or more individuals that are autonomous goal-getters, that would naturally go the extra mile. However, some need to be pushed, and it is your capacity to translate your objectives and present it to them that would motivate them to perform. As such, you must set goals that will drive your employees to stretch their imagination. Workers with complicated roles or tasks generally achieve their objectives faster than those that are not required to do complex tasks. You should gauge how much strain your team can withstand before imposing huge goals, or else it might snap. You could analyze the current capacity of your team, its tenacity, then gradually introduce objectives that transcend its current comfort zone. Chapter 8. Let continuous performance review lead the way that will consistently track improvements or weaknesses. Pushing your employees to stretch their capacity to attain success entails that you have a system that would consistently track their improvements or weaknesses. When it comes to tracking performance, the conventional annual performance review is useless. Instead, you need a model that will keep you in touch with your team's psychological well-being and willpower, a tool that will allow you to identify leaks way before they deteriorate. Now, more than ever, continuous performance management models and systems are coming to the fray, with executives staying attuned with the proficiency of their workforce. This model utilizes a tool that promotes conversations, feedback, and recognition, CFRs. It also works hand in hand with OKRs to make objectives achievable. Furthermore, the emergence of OKRs and CFRs has dislodged compensation away from the reward for a good job conversation, especially since we have established that completing a task does not necessarily imply better performance. However, note that it is impossible to completely remove compensation as a form of performance reward. You must find a balance with the help of CFRs that would help you identify true high-flying employees. To put this model in place, you must engage with employees in one-on-one conversations where you or your team leaders tackle issues that could stifle growth. Likewise, you should set up a feedback system which encourages continuous and real-time reviews. Note that a better way of doing this is to ensure that feedback is precise and that they are peer-to-peer. This approach entails that employees are empowered to also review managers and executives. You should adopt a recognition system that appreciates the contributions of employees, no matter how minute. You can recognize the efforts of your employees by following these subsequent steps. Incorporate peer-to-peer recognition where a culture of gratitude thrives among peers. Clearly state the achievements of the person instead of opting for the popular Employee of the Month approach. You can improve recognition attempts by publishing the full story behind the success on the company's blog or newsletter. Recognize individuals, teams, departments, and your company's policies or culture consistently. Chapter 9. With the wrong organizational culture, there will be difficulty in executing objectives. Executives sometimes find themselves reeling the effect of poor decisions, bad strategies, or below-par executions. In many of these cases, it is the culture of the business or corporation and not the strategy that is the problem. This conundrum poses a problem that might haunt the execution of objectives. So, the question is, what is the appropriate culture for a company that is looking to adopt the OKR model? From what we have learned from previous chapters, OKRs ensure that goals are aligned, that processes are transparent, and that results are measurable. When you add this template to that of CRs, which establishes accountability and communication, then what we have is a healthy and positive culture in itself. For companies like Google, the utilization of both strategies evokes team spirit as groups are jointly responsible for the achievement of goals, and individuals take up the responsibility for key results. In essence, collaboration encourages diligence, particularly when responsibilities are shared. You could also incorporate pulsing, which John Doerr says will give you a clearer view as to which part of your ecosystem needs urgent attention. To do this, you should ask your employees simple and wide-ranging questions that would serve as the lens by which you view your workplace culture. By doing so, you won't have to wait until a talented but disgruntled employee tenders his resignation before finding out that there's a problem. It is best if you replace business processes that focus on short-term success with the ones that place long-term legacy above every other thing. Switching your organization's culture is a delicate undertaking that could leave some people behind. You could mitigate this by slowly introducing new ideas while leading by example. For what it's worth, the benefits of implementing OKRs and CRs is a good enough reason to take the risk. Conclusion. The only way to conform to the growing emphasis on a collaborative culture, which has proven to be a viable response to today's ever-changing business terrain, is to adopt the flexible, transparent, and effective OKRs model. OKRs are there to lead you on the path to greatness. The importance of OKRs cannot be overstated. You need them to function well individually and wherever you find yourself. The greatest minds in the world all have objectives and key results. Your objectives are the platforms on which you build a brand. It is only when you successfully do this that you begin to set the key results. Though this summary has fixated on its effectiveness in small and large companies like Intel and Google, however, you can translate its goal-chasing values in your everyday life as you match your objectives with expected results. My model for business is the Beatles. There were 4 guys who kept each other's negative tendencies in check. They balanced each other, and the total was greater than the sum of the parts. That's how I see business. Great things in business are never done by one person. They're done by a team of people. Steve Jobs. In the end, you will be able to achieve more when you focus on what matters at every set time. Try this. Align and connect for teamwork by following these processes. Incentivize employees by showing how their objectives relate to the leader's vision and the company's top priorities. The express route to operating excellence is lined with transparent public goals. On up to the CEO. Use all-hands meetings to explain why an OKR is important to the organization. Then keep repeating the message until you're tired of hearing it yourself. When deploying cascaded OKRs with objectives driven from the top, welcome give and take on key results from frontline contributors. Innovation dwells less at a company's center than at its edges. Encourage a healthy proportion of bottom-up OKRs, roughly half. Make all lateral, cross-functional dependencies explicit. When an OKR is revised or dropped, see to it that all stakeholders know about it.